So welcome to the workforce track. This is session 240, setting SMART strategic human resource goals. So it's a pleasure to introduce Mary. Try to get away from the speaker. So Mary Rockenstein is a Chief Encouragement Officer and ownership of Leadership Ed Solutions. After holding leadership positions in various companies for more than 30 years, Mary had a desire to help others become unstoppable through her speaking, training, coaching, and writing. Mary obtained a bachelor's degree from Grove City College in Grove City, Pennsylvania, and earned a master's degree in human resource development from the Ohio State University. Mary obtained her coaching certifications through the John Maxwell team and through Health Coach Institute. So I want to welcome Mary. Oh, this is a hybrid session, so we have people joining us online, and we'll always make sure for the folks to hear online, if you have a question, we'll pass the microphone so that they can have access to that.
Great, thank you, Willie. Well, good morning and welcome, everyone. I'm delighted to be here today to talk to you about goal setting. In fact, we're going to talk about some keys to what I call smarter goal setting. How many of you, by a show of hands, I absolutely love the goal setting process? Okay, all right. Fair enough. Here's another question. How many of you would say that year after year, you achieve at least 90% of your personal and professional goals year after year? Pretty consistently, raise your hands. Wow. Well, I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised because here's the thing. I keep looking for better information than what I'm going to give you. I do. I search and search and search. It's like these numbers have got to be wrong. But really, only about 10% of us achieve our goals year after year. Only about 10%. Actually, it's 8. I'm rounding it up because I'm trying to be optimistic. But that's not real exciting, is it? Why do we write goals? What's the purpose of goal setting to begin with? Why do we do it? Why do we do it?
Have something to measure against.
Yeah, and we want to achieve something bigger, right? Because we want to achieve and accomplish the really great things. That's why we set goals. It also keeps us motivated, keeps us on track, keeps us connected to something bigger. So today in our little journey, we're going to do the following. We're going to first of all talk about components of well-written goals. Now, that sounds like a snooze fest. I promise you it won't be. Because we're going to talk about it from a different perspective. In just a moment, we're going to get into barriers to goal accomplishment. Maybe we don't think about barriers, but there are some real barriers that I'm guessing each and every one of us in this room have experienced. So we'll talk about that. I believe in setting SMART goals. I'm not anti-SMART goal. I believe in that. You'll see that here in a little bit. But because of the research that I've done and the books that I've read about the brain and brain science, and the new information that we have today that we did not have when I was working for other organizations. Because of that, we don't leave it as a SMART goal. You're going to hear and you're going to learn and you're going to see and you're going to have some practical application in creating SMART goals, micro goals, and then micro steps. And you'll understand, again, the reason behind all of that. So before we move into the first slide, where we're going to talk about barriers to goal accomplishment, I do want to say, I invite you, if you have a question at any time, I tend to talk pretty fast and pretty energetic. And so if I say something and you're like, whoa, what was that? Don't hesitate to raise your hand. Probably someone will come to you with a microphone because we are a hybrid session today. So we want to make sure that the folks on Zoom are able to hear your questions as well. All right, so let's take a look at some of these barriers to goal accomplishment. The first one, if a goal is too vague or too big, here's what happens up here. La, 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 la. I can't deal with it. The brain just kind of shuts down. Now, I'm not going to contradict myself because we do want to be attached to something bigger, which might be vague, but that's not the goal. So if our goals are written in a way where, and that's the challenge, by the way, I have with SMART goals, the way we typically write them. SMART goals left on their own devices are a little bit vague sometimes and challenging. And that is why only I saw one head nod. By the way, you couldn't all see this, but when I asked how many of you regularly achieve your goals, I said one person. Yeah, pretty much do, out of the entire room. And that's part of the reason why we're not bad people. we're not using brain science to set ourselves up to be successful. So here's the next one. This is actually one of my favorites. Is anybody familiar with the term annualized thinking? Okay, this comes from a book which I would really encourage you to read if you're not familiar with it. It's called The 12-Week Year by Michael Lennington and Brian Moran. This is the first time I saw the concept annualized thinking. Here's how this works. And how many of you right now, anybody in the room, is your goal setting process, or I should say your fiscal year, does it run with the calendar year for most of you? Okay, good. I'm seeing a few no's, but we'll go with the yeses, okay? So let's assume that your goal setting process or your fiscal year is January through December. Here's what happens. And I'm going to assume that we have the goals ready to go, like in January, but I'm going to tell you the truth. In corporate America, we never did. It was well into the first quarter before we actually had the goals done for that year. And I don't know if you follow suit, but that's the truth. And I see some heads nodding, so thank you for that. Yeah, it's a challenge. Let's just say you've had a good year and good goal setting. And so by January 15th, your goals are ready to go and you have SMART goals. Okay. Well, you just came back from the holidays and now you had 2 weeks of intensive and you don't like goal setting because not one person raised their hand and said, I love this. So this is emotionally draining. What are you thinking on January 16th about those goals? What are you thinking? I'm done with them. I don't even want to think about them right now, let alone how am I going to get them done? I'm done with this. I'm going to put them aside. It's January 16th. I've got all year to get these done. Okay, so we get through the first quarter because, man, I've had a lot of work to do. Now we're looking at April. Oh, April. What happens in April? Taxes. I can't think about goals. I'm stressing out about all the money I owe the IRS. And then what if I get audited? Oh, I need to recover from this. So now we're looking at May and June, and May and June. Oh my goodness, I've got commencement. I've got weddings, I've got prom, I've got all these things. I can't be thinking about all this extra stuff at work. No problem. I still have 6 months to go. No problem, no sweat. Oops, it's June. What happens in June, July, August? Vacations. Actually, July, August, September. Vacations. I forgot I'm going to the beach. I'm not going to work on goals. I'm not going to think about my business goals, my work goals. No. And then when I come back from vacation, I can't be thinking about those goals that you're worried about back there because now I'm covering for somebody else who's on vacation. No problem. We got plenty of time. Except that it's now October. Isn't October the most beautiful month in Ohio? Isn't it gorgeous? It is my favorite month. Absolutely gorgeous, right? Oh yeah, those goals. Whoo, I got a lot of work to do, but I got a lot of real work to do. So I don't know what I'm going to do, but maybe I can negotiate with somebody I'll worry about them. Then we end up, and by the way, I often wondered this. For 10 years, I've been calling some of my friends that are still working in corporate America, right? I call them on November 1st just to say, hey, happy holidays, how are things going? Every single one of them, how are you doing? I'm so stressed. You're stressed? What are you stressed about? You don't work for the US Post Office. You don't work for Amazon. You don't work for a retailer. You don't work for FedEx, DHL, or UPS. What in the world are you stressed about? I just have so much to do. Is your business really that busy the last 6 weeks of the year? What's going on? What's your business trend? Oh, it's not bad. I just have so much work. I have annualized thinking. And I've taken 12 months worth of work, and now I have 6 weeks to get it done. That's annualized thinking. It happens, folks. Understand, that's our brain. That's our brain, and we can work with it. One that often accompanies annualized thinking is the next one, cognitive inertia. Here's cognitive inertia. By the way, I got to give you an illustration of cognitive inertia first because it happens in a couple of different ways. If you want to have some fun, go to the grocery store over the weekend, your favorite grocery store, Kroger, Meijer, whatever it may be, Giant Eagle, and just park in the parking lot and watch where people park. Where do people park? As close to the entrance as possible. There could be 15 spaces 5 spaces back. No, I'm waiting for that space as soon as he leaves. And I'm waiting and I'm waiting. And somebody comes down and darn it, if they don't make a right-hand turn and cut me off so I can't, don't we do that? See, our brains are basically lazy. I'm not saying you're lazy. I have a brain just like you. Our brains are naturally lazy. We look for the path of least resistance. That's why we all fight for the parking spaces, because it's less effort, right? That's what we do. Here's how cognitive inertia works with goal setting. Let's just say I have a goal that I've decided that I'm going to accomplish. I've declared, here's my SMART goal. And a day goes by, and a week goes by, and a month goes by, and I've done 0. Cognitive inertia states that the longer we wait from the time that we make a decision to do something, the longer we wait to take action, the less likely we will be to actually take action. So cognitive inertia is also not our friend. That is why, by the way, kind of a prelude, why I'm advocating that we actually create micro goals and micro steps, because that's an invitation to do something right away, do something else right away, do it right away, because we can, because they're so small. The next one I want to talk about is negative framing. Hi, Randy, how you doing? I know Randy from way back. It's good to see you. Usually I'm on the other side though, so Randy knows that. Negative framing is when we write a goal using a negative verb. I will lessen, I will lower, I will reduce, I will stop. Those are all negative words. Guess what our brains don't like? Negative words. Now here, this is kind of going to sound duplicitous because we typically speak negatively. We will look at something and find out what's wrong before we look at what's right, because that's our brain trying to keep a safety net around us. Our brains are designed to keep us alive. That is why our brains exist. If our brains determine that we're going to stop doing something, we're going to lower something, we're going to reduce something, it feels like no. If you give that up, warning, 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 Will Robinson, the world is going to come to an end. Don't do that. So the way that we work with the brain is by using positive language. So instead of stopping, we start. Instead of reducing, we enlarge, or we gain, or we attain. All of those are positive words. I had someone yesterday, I have a client that I've been working with for about 5 years, and I take about 30 of their folks through a 24-month leadership development program that we've worked on together. And one of the modules a month and a half ago was on goal setting. They had about an hour with me on exactly what you're going through today. Well, not exactly, but a little bit different. And I warned them, I said, hey, in another month and a half, we're going to be in a new course, but that course is also going to touch on goal setting. So I'm going to ask each and every one of you to give me an update on how you're doing. And one of the gentlemen, kind of who was really anti-goal setting, he was not really interested in this. He came up with a personal goal, and it was about reducing something. And so when I saw his goal, I said, hey, I'd like to just encourage you to think about not reducing, but to maybe gain something. And he wasn't getting it. And so I gave him a few hints. And this week he said to me, I got what you were saying. He said, not only did I change the verb to a positive verb, I'm gaining instead of losing or reducing. He said, I'm actually getting things done that I didn't get done in the past, because I've been working on this personal issue for probably 5 years. So it absolutely makes a difference in terms of the framing of the verb tense that we're using. And also, and Andrea this morning mentioned this, which I really appreciated, because she talked about employees. You know, they want to know that they're attached to something bigger. Well, we do too. Our brains want to know that this goal that we have, so what? What difference does it make at the end of the day if I achieve this goal or not? What's the big so what? So we want to make sure that our SMART goals are linked to something bigger. And we're going to talk about that something bigger here in a moment. Before we do, I want you to see kind of the trajectory of how this all kind of flows down, in case this is a little bit new for you. It starts with what we call the aspirational vision. The aspirational vision, if you can see that icon at the top, it's a big mountain. The aspirational vision, which we'll go into a little more detail here in a bit, is a 60,000 foot perspective of what you want to do. And it's usually 2 to 3 years out. So this is, and by the way, when I used to work with, I don't know if any of you are familiar with the Governor's Community Service Council years ago, and AmeriCorps, I used to do some work with them. And when we were doing some strategic visioning and strategic planning, we were going 5 years out, in some cases 10 years out. I do not recommend that today. We are in such a fast-paced, dynamic environment. I think 2 to 3 years is pretty good. If you want to go 5, that's completely your choice. By the way, everything I tell you today, there is no jail for aspirational vision violations. Okay, so I want you to use this information, and the same thing with the goal setting in a way that makes the most sense for you. But we start with that. Then if you can see that target, you know, the next thing we work on is SMART goals. The SMART goals cascade down or feed from that aspirational vision. And depending upon the level of someone in an organization, those SMART goals are going to be a little bigger, and then a little smaller and a little smaller. Now, this is where I might be rocking your world a little bit, and I'll stop doing that in a moment. Component parts. We take a SMART goal, and the way I think about it is I come up with all the big buckets of activity that has to happen in order for me to achieve that SMART goal. I call those components. You can call them categories. You can call them facets, labels, whatever you want to call them. But those folks become our micro goals. That's all a micro goal is. It's a component part of a SMART goal. SMART goal, again, aspirational vision, typically 2 to 3 years out into the future. SMART goals, typically a year out. No one is going to come and put you in SMART goal jail if your SMART goal is a little bit longer or a little bit shorter in duration. That's totally up to you. The average is about 1 year. The micro goals, anybody know how long in duration the micro goals would be then? Anyone want to take a guess? Pardon me? Very good. Yeah, quarterly, 90 days, 3 months, a quarter, however you want to think about that. And then we have micro steps. And this is really going to rock your world. The micro steps, think of it as an action plan, the list of things that you're going to do in order to accomplish that bigger activity, which is now the micro goal. The micro steps, 15 minutes or less, each one. Cognitive inertia. If you create an action plan, and the first 3 things on that action plan, each are going to take 3 hours apiece. Tomorrow will go by, a week will go by, a month will go by. Oh my gosh, I forgot what I was supposed to be doing. Okay, that's why we create micro steps, because the brain likes to see small, and the brain also likes it when you cross things off and get them done. That's motivation, that's momentum to keep going. Again, this is not stuff I just sat around and made up one day because I thought I'm going to really mess with my clients. I'm going to rock their world. This comes from what we know today through neuroscientists, which is amazing. It's amazing. I wish we had this years ago. Now, your conference theme is cross-pollination, which I love, because what I'm about to show you is cross-pollination and how it can happen in your agency, your organizations. I call this cascading and waterfalling. It's also cross-pollination, because here's what happens. It starts with, up at the top, that aspirational vision. And the aspirational vision is normally set by, and it could be the board, could be superintendents, but it's usually the highest level in an organization. That's who works on and creates the aspirational vision. From there, it flows down to, at some point, my supervisor, whoever that may be, is going to set SMART goals that are in alignment with that aspirational vision. And then I'm going to be expected to set SMART goals that are in alignment with that vision. And then if I have direct reports, I want them to set SMART goals that are in alignment with mine, because it's a beautiful thing. Here's what happens. From the aspirational vision, everything feeds everything. And it goes the other way too, because look what happens. Is my direct report, if I have direct reports, if they're working on their SMART goals, their action plan, that's feeding into mine. And when my SMART goals are being met, that's feeding into my supervisors. And when my supervisor's SMART goals are being met, that's actually supporting that aspirational vision. If you've ever had, if you've ever at the end of the year been disappointed because you really had a great initiative, it's like, doggone it, at the beginning of the year, we were going to do X, Y, Z. We didn't get it done. I don't want you to have another one of those years. I don't want you to ever have another one of those years. And if you follow the science, you won't, right? You still start big, but through cross-pollination through the organization, it gets smaller and smaller and smaller. Okay, any questions on any of this yet? Anyone? Okay, and hopefully none on Zoom. I want to talk about I've been mentioning the aspirational vision. The aspirational vision, again, is a 2 to 3 year lookout into the future. And it typically comes from the highest levels of leadership in your organization. And the aspirational vision could be wrapped around your vision statement, could be wrapped around your mission statement, can be wrapped around your core values. It can be wrapped around a change initiative that you want to undertake. It could be wrapped around any of that. It's just big. It's usually 2 to 3 years out. Now, we don't leave it right there, right? We don't leave it just with the aspirational vision because, as Moran and Leddington say, a vision without a plan is really just a pipe dream. Now, before we go into the, okay, I get it, I get the aspirational vision, it's big, it's a little vague, whatever, and the SMART goals are going to be a little less vague, a little less big, and then the micro goals. I get all that. Let's see what that looks like. Well, before we do that, I want to show you something else. I find that in working with clients, many people do not know the difference between a goal and an action item. What they'll do is they'll take an action item. I will create Form XYZ for individuals served in my community by June 30th. That's my goal, boss. That's my goal. That's not a goal. Bless your heart. That might be really important and valuable to do that. That in and of itself is not a goal because you see, goals are outcome-based. Goals are results-based. Goals, again, have a big so what attached to them. We can identify that this is important because it's the so what factor. Again, outcome, results-based. Activities or action items are simply the things that we do. It's the activity. It's how we spend our time. And I think you'll see that framing in a minute. I think a lot of us, myself included, back in the day, wrote a lot of, these are my goals, and they really weren't goals. They were really just activities that were a little bigger, and I happened to put a due date on it. It's not the same thing. Again, remember what Andrea said today. We all want to be attached to something bigger. We want to be attached to something bigger, and by writing SMART goals in the appropriate way, you're starting to do that. All right, so here's an example. You tell me if this is an action item or if this is a goal. Here we go. I will create a leadership course for our agency by 12/31/23. Wait a minute. My company is leadership development. That's going to take a lot of work. What do you mean that that's an action item? I'm crushed. Why is that an action item? You're right. Why is that an action item? Pardon me? There's no result. There's no big so what? Okay, that's great. Maybe it needs to be done, but what's the so what? What's the outcome? What's the result? What about this? What about this? I will increase staff leadership skills by having 6 promotable now staff members by 12/31/23. I hear a little of both. I think it's actually a goal. It could be a better written goal. I think it could be a more pronounced outcome or result, but it's really more of a goal because we're going to increase staff leadership, right? Staff leadership is going to grow. Again, I think it could be written a little better. Technically a goal. Here's a better SMART goal. By 12/31/23, I will increase our staff member retention levels by 10% as measured by the change in our annualized retention rate for fiscal year 2023, as compared to our annualized retention rate for fiscal year 2022. Now, Andrea mentioned the word turnover today. I would not measure turnover. What's the why behind that? It's negative, right? We don't want to reduce turnover. We want to increase retention. Big difference. Big difference. I also add a statement of significance. I've been doing this really probably 5 years ago. I started teaching SMARTs goal setting because I added the statement of significance. To me, this really affirmed that it's results oriented, it's outcome based. So if you look at the statement of significance, this is significant because an increase in retention will help to create stronger bonds with individuals served in our community. Do you feel like that's attached to something bigger? Yeah. And I can get behind that. That's something to get up for every morning. Creating a leadership course might not even be the right course. Might not even have anything to do with leadership. You know, at the end of the day, I might have just hit a goose egg, but I got it done, right? I got that done. No one's going to come to that class, but I got it done, right? So big difference there. One of the things I do with any SMART goal that I write, I take it through 2 filters. And the first one is the SMART goal filter. So would you say by looking at that right now, is that specific? Yeah, it's specific, 10% delta is what I'm looking at, right? Is it measurable? Yeah. Is it attainable? What if I'm the director of IT? Right? That's what we have to look at. It's attainable if I touch human resources in some way, most likely, right? Otherwise, attainability is this within my purview? Is this within my realm of, is it reasonable that I could actually do this? So yeah, we'll just assume that it is. How about this? Is it realistic? Probably depends on what your trend has been with retention. Probably depends. It might be a little altruistic, I don't know, but you have to really weigh that. Considering the factors that we're dealing with, is this something that we could conceivably do? That would be the realistic. And then what's the T stand for? Time. Does it have a time component? Which it does, right? Now, the next filter I run through is anybody familiar with the 3 Ps? All right, this is brain stuff too. So the first P is it personal? It's personal if it's I will. Notice it isn't we will. It's I will. The brain needs to know this is me. It's my responsibility. I got this. I will. Then we look at, is it positive? And it's positive, right? Because we're increasing retention, we're not decreasing turnover. So that would be the lens that we're looking at there. And then the last one, if it's actually attainable and realistic, it actually meets the last one, which is possible. Okay. So any questions on that or on the 2 filters? Really important that you get in the habit of running your goal statements, your SMART goal statements through those 2 filters. All right, now before we cover this, if I could get your help, Willie, maybe in handing these out. We have some handouts for you, and I think I should have enough. I think you can each have one. You're welcome. Thank you. Oh, you're handing up. Oh, here you go. I'll give you the big pile then. Thank you. There we go. All right, so if you look at that first page, in case you're wondering, this aspirational vision, et cetera, those are some questions that are often used. There are more. There's just 16 listed, but those are questions you can use to create an aspirational vision. The aspirational vision I reviewed with you is on that page. If you turn to page 2, just flip that over on the other side. You will then see the SMART goal that I just covered about increasing retention. And then right underneath that, you see components. How will we achieve this, right? Everybody there that has a handout? I know you're still getting them. Heather and Willie, thank you for handing those out. What I do, and there's a reason why I do this, you have a linear list of components. I like to do mind mapping. And here's the reason why. How many of you, you're familiar with art therapy and you're familiar with, there's a lot of art studios now that you can come in and an artist will show you how to draw a bowl of fruit. You can paint a bowl of fruit or whatever, right? I don't do that because I really know that if I did that, my artwork would probably be the book cover for Stephen King's next novel. I am not an artist. I can't draw a straight line with a ruler, but I love to mind map because it's my little playful way of saying I can be creative and artistic. So I do mind map a lot. You don't have to mind map. You can do whatever you want, but here's what I did. And you have a page that some of you have turned to. If you want to look at the list of components, it's on the black and white copy, on page 2 of the black and white copy. But here you go. I put the goal in the middle, and you notice that I abbreviated it. I abbreviated the goal. You don't have to write the whole goal out. You can. I didn't. I chose not to. And then around the goal, I have what I chose as the big buckets of activity or action items or components or labels or buckets of things that if they happen, then I'll be able to achieve and complete that SMART goal. So for me, it was needs analysis, development plans, celebration, recognition, appreciation. Then we go up here to surveys. I call them entrance interviews. It's the same thing that Andrea said, stay interview. It's the same thing. Targeted training and development and individual goal setting. Those are my components. Your components could be completely different. That's okay. That's totally okay. But is everybody seeing how we take that SMART goal and we whittle it down? Each one of these components becomes a SMART goal. For the sake of time, we're just going to look at one, and I just happen to choose needs analysis. So we're going to look at needs analysis, and I didn't go through all of the micro steps. I'm just going to give you a bird's eye view of what a micro step then would look like. So you also have this on page 2 in about the middle of the page. So you see the micro steps. Now look at that first one. Block off time in calendar to brainstorm category. Are you serious, Mary? Are you serious that you write that silly little thing down as a micro step? Yes, I do. What's the why behind it? Pardon me? It's 15 minutes or less, right? It is, but why do I do that? Because I'll do it and check it off. Cognitive inertia. It's not happening. I'm not giving in. I just did one little thing and I crossed it off. It might sound silly, but it gets your brain like, okay, I guess this is safe. I guess we can do this. We'll keep going. So far, so good, right? That's why we do it. Now, you'll notice that there's an item on here, conduct meeting. That is one arguably, now, by the way, I'm a fan of very short meetings. I'm a fan of effectiveness, and I really think we could have better meetings that were shorter. But let's just say that, well, our meetings are an hour. Okay, so let's just say that's going to be an hour meeting realistically. That's okay. As long as most of your items are smaller and 15 minutes in length or less, that's okay. Notice something about the due dates, the due by. What do you notice about those? Well, they're spread out. They're not all in the same week, are they? They're not all due May 10th. They're spread out. What's the why behind that? It's not as overwhelming. And here's the reality. I don't know how many SMART goals conceivably you will have. Back in the day, we used to have 3 to 5. I think 5 is way too many. I think 3 is about right. If you do the math and say, and by the way, there's no, again, rule about how many micro goals you have to have for every SMART goal, but on average, it's 5 to 7. Let's say you have 3 SMART goals, you have 7 micro goals for each one. That's 21 micro goals. You will likely be working on perhaps 4 or 5 micro goals each quarter. So you don't want to load things up. You want to spread it out. By the way, this is why you also, if you have direct reports, this is a really good way to take a component of a SMART goal and say, I would love for you to own this. And I'm going to show you how to put together an action plan. And together, we're going to knock this out. How's that sound? She's nodding her head and smiling. She's buying in. She's got it, right? But that's what we do. That way, you don't have the burden of everything. You can get others involved in helping with that. All right. Any questions on this? Again, this is not complete. The micro steps or micro actions for this would go well into at least 2 months, if not 2.5 months. They would be spread out. And there is a list. My action items for this are about 30. So my micro steps, I should say, are about 30. Okay. All right. So you see that you have on the first color copy that you have, you see in there that you have SMART goal, and then you have some components. If you look at the bottom, of your handout, the black and white copy, look at the bottom of page 2, and you'll see exercise there. We're going to read this together. Using the aspirational vision summary, which is on page 1 of your handout, it's at the bottom. We reviewed it. I read it to you. It was on the slide, but you can turn it over. It's on page 1. Using that aspirational vision summary on page 1 of your handout, I want you to create a SMART goal, which is different from the one that I just went over about increasing staff retention. So don't use that. Come up with another one based on this really aspirational vision summary that is on the bottom of page 1. Once you do that, or by the way, you can use the SMART goal below if you'd rather. This might resonate with some of you. Some of you might be like, what is she talking about? But over the next 12 months, I will increase my overall satisfaction rating by 2 points each quarter from those individuals who are served in my community as compared to overall satisfaction ratings from last year. This assumes that you're doing a satisfaction survey with individuals served in your community. If you are, you might want to just say, I'll experiment with this one and see where it goes. This is significant because as a people first agency, we are here to improve the lives of those we serve. Okay, so what I want you to do, and you, by the way, you don't have to work by yourself. If you're comfortable working by yourself and you'd rather do that, please do that. You can work in with another partner. You can work in a big group. It doesn't matter to me. I want you to make this good use of your time and learning as well. So what I want you to do is come up with your own SMART goal. And I would not spend more than about 6 minutes on that, or you won't have time to really get into creating the micro goals and some micro steps. So either use this SMART goal at the very bottom of page 2 or create your own in about 5 or 6 minutes. Once you do that, I want you then to turn to that color copy and just write your SMART goal in the middle and then start to identify the categories. What are the big action items that are going to happen in order for you to achieve that SMART goal? Then you're not done. Then I want you to turn the page and you'll see a little spreadsheet. Then I want you to start to write in your action items, the action steps, the micro steps, 15 minutes or less in duration. Okay. And by the way, you can cross off up at the top. I'm going to have to fire my admin after today, and that would be me. But up at the top, you'll see date in that first column. And then you see the numbers. Date shouldn't be up there. These are just the numbers numbered in terms of the micro steps. Right here, you can cross this off right here. And it's on both pages. Okay. So I'm going to give you about 15 minutes to get started on that. I'm going to be wandering around in case you do have any questions, but I'd like to see what you come up with. I'd like to hear from a couple of you in terms of a micro goal and a couple of micro steps. Okay. Everybody clear? Any questions? All right. I will be wandering. Steve, are you working on your own?
Yeah.
You're okay working on your own? Okay. All right, good. did you do your own SMART goal or did you use the one that was in there?
I did my own.
Good,
Yeah,
good,
but I
good.
might have gone out of order. I think you said to do something else before we put it on here.
No,
So- oh,
No,
okay.
no,
Oh,
you're good, you're good. And now you're just going to dissect it, come up with the big categories of components and then start working on your action items. You're good. Yeah, thank you. What you're doing, you're either going to use the SMART goal that I created down here, or you can create your own that tethers back to the aspirational vision on page 1, right? This is the aspirational vision. So if you want to come up with a different SMART goal, because that one doesn't make sense, that's on the bottom of page 2, you can do that, or you can use that goal right here on the bottom of page 2 and just write it on the colored copy that you have right behind that page. That goes in the middle, and then you're going to come up with the categories or the big action items that are going to have to happen in order for you to achieve that. Does that make sense? Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay. How are you guys doing? Good? Okay. Are you doing your own? Oh, good. That's okay. That's okay. That's totally okay. Please do that. That's totally okay. Yeah, absolutely. You doing okay?
I just need to see another example of a SMART goal.
What did you come up with?
Well, I was gonna just use this one, but,
Well, that's the vision. So you want to use
well, I'm sorry, this.
the one over there? Yeah.
I was gonna use this one, but I'm,
So are you struggling with coming up with the components of that?
yeah, I think, yes, I think that's probably it.
Okay.
I'm not, maybe I just need to decide who I am, like a supervisor with a team, like, I guess I'm struggling to like,
What is your role? Your real role?
it's a new role. So organizational effectiveness manager is like brand new. So I'm still trying to
Oh,
figure out the whole plan
well,
for that.
there you go.
I don't have
Though.
direct reports. Yeah.
That's okay. You don't have to have direct reports. This might just be, if we're pretending here, but because of what you just described, that's a perfect goal for you to have. You're not going to necessarily be delegating it to anybody, and that's okay. So what would be
You mean
like?
this one?
Yeah.
The overall satisfaction.
Yeah.
My overall satisfaction ratings or?
No, it's those served, the individuals served in the community.
Okay.
So you're in place to make sure that,
I actually feel we need to focus more internally. So
okay,
with our own like internal.
okay. So you know what? Just tweak
modify it.
this
Okay.
and make it fit for internal. You're
Right.
totally fine,
Thank you.
totally fine. Absolutely. No, don't worry about it. It's good. Can I peek? And did you use, which SMART goal did you
I
use?
just used yours.
The one on that right there?
Oh, yes.
Yeah, okay. And you're the one who accomplishes goals too, so I'm not surprised to see that. Yeah, does this help you at all? Do you see value in this in terms of, yeah, okay. Because I saw that you were, so I'm like, well, good, I'm glad I have somebody in here who's very goal oriented. Yeah, good for you. No, that's good, good for you. How are we doing?
I think good. I was sharing too, and then we worked on some of these. I think another interesting component is with the micro is you're allowed to fail. Like if it doesn't work, you know what I mean?
Mhm.
Moving on to something differently, which I think is probably, like you said, important for.
And you're not talking about the whole SMART goal, you're talking about just the micro goal, right? Which is a component of it. So if this isn't working, I can scrap it. I've got other things to work on with regard to the, yeah. Okay. Were you able to fill in anything, or what are you working on as far as the SMART goal? You're conceptually. And how are you doing? You think you're doing good? Okay. How are you doing on those? Mm-hmm. Mm. Yeah. Yeah. Is that typically how you would have done goal setting in the past? Mm-hmm. 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 And how about the micro steps?
I just started that, but reaching out to the counselors had a meeting.
But is that new for you, or were you doing them in 15-minute increments too before? No. Okay. Okay. Good. Good. You're on a good path. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. Well, and that's where asking yourself the so what? Why are we doing this? At the end of the day, what is, God bless you, what is all this going to mean? Right? That's the question I think to ask yourself. Honestly, I'm going to go ahead and move us on. So does the essence of it make sense though to you? Yeah. Need a little more time. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Gotcha. Okay. All right. I'm going to have you wrap up your conversations, because I don't want to be the one barrier that you have between lunch. All right. Who has, you don't have to share the SMART goal. Actually, all I would like you to share is one component and then maybe a couple of micro steps. And may I use the microphone there, please? Thank you. Okay, who wouldn't mind sharing one? I saw some really good ones. Some of you, again, decided to do your own related to a different aspirational vision, and that's totally fine. Totally fine. So who has one that you wouldn't mind sharing? Just one micro goal, one of the components, and then just a couple of the micro steps. You're looking at me. Would you? Oh, thank you. Bless your heart. Thank you.
So one of my components was to conduct one stay interview with each employee per year. So my micro steps were to determine how many stay interviews need done per month, create a list of all employees and determine what month they will have their stay interview, block off time in the calendar for each month going forward to send out the invites for the stay interviews, conduct the stay interviews as scheduled and collect data, and then take the data collected and determine the trends.
Does the stay interview actually exist? Do you need to create the stay interview?
I have the questions already.
So you have the questions already.
I'm
Okay.
good.
Okay, good. All right, great. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. Excellent. How about another one? One micro goal and just a couple of the micro steps. I'm going to the end, people. I'm sorry. Would you mind sharing? Because I know you were on a roll there too.
So the micro goal?
Just the one micro goal
Okay.
and then just a couple of the micro steps.
And improve staff camaraderie. And one of the steps for that is scheduling region-wide events where staff get together and, because we don't see each other a whole lot in our particular company. So I think that would increase camaraderie.
And maybe even start by blocking off time on your calendar to do that, right? Yeah, again, just because it's a really small step. And that is attached to a bigger SMART goal, right? Yeah, good. All right, how about someone over here? Just one micro goal and a couple of micro steps. Who's feeling brave? You can't mess this up. No one's grading you. Okay. Keep walking. It's not the first time I've been told that. One more. Would you mind over here just sharing one micro goal? You don't have to share the SMART goal, just one micro goal and a couple of micro steps.
Sure.
Thank you.
So I did a micro goal around creating a tool for assessing the overall satisfaction of families we serve, kind of taking what you had and
Yeah,
tweaking it to ours,
yeah,
and then blocking off time to brainstorm, scheduling a meeting with the staff, creating an agenda, just kind of working our way down.
great, thank you. Hopefully, I know for some of you, this was a little hard. It's like, yeah, I'm just not used to this, and that's okay. I will tell you, this gets easier the more you throw yourself in there and just say, I've got this. By the way, more brain science, tell yourself, I've got this. Don't tell yourself, oh, I'm so confused. I don't know where to start. Because whatever you say, whatever you think becomes your beliefs, becomes your emotions, becomes your attitudes, which drives your behaviors and your actions and the results that you get. So if you tell yourself, I'm confused, likely you'll remain confused, and you don't need to be. Really, I think you do have this. All right, so let's go ahead, just quickly summarize. We talked about the importance today of cascading. Think of that as cross-pollination. We start with this aspirational vision. And by the way, you noticed on the handout that the aspirational vision, which most organizations use, is about a paragraph. So typically you want to find someone in your agency or your organization who's a really good writer, really good wordsmith, because if you answer 15, 16, 20 of those very strategic questions, you're going to have a lot of pages, and you want to synthesize it and summarize it. So you want to find somebody that can do that in just, very short order, maybe a paragraph, maybe two maximum. Then you want to cascade those goals throughout, because we all want to be attached to something that's more important, something that's bigger than us. You've heard that twice today, some of you. We all want to be attached to that bigger thing. We also want to make sure that we're keeping in mind some of the brain-friendly information that we talked about today. SMART goals, gosh, the reason why we want to narrow SMART goals down to micro goals and micro steps, because left on their own, they're still too big. And that might cause us to get into annualized thinking, I've got time, I'll do it later, and then later comes November 1st. Right? When you've got other things on your mind as well. So we also want to make sure that we're putting into place micro steps, 15 minutes or less activities generally, that we can knock off so we don't engage in cognitive inertia, which is, I don't feel like doing that right now. I don't have time. That's too big. And then we talked about the framing. We want to make sure that the goals are framed using positive verbs, not losing, reducing, stopping, minimizing, but enlarging, gaining, increasing, those kinds of things. And then lastly, we talked about smarter. Take the goals and make them smarter by making them smaller and dissecting them into the components. Some of you did a phenomenal job on that exercise, and I really appreciate you digging into it. I realize if it's the first time you've been doing something like this, it can feel a little strange. I really encourage you to keep doing it, because again, why do we set goals? We set goals so that we can attain the really big things in life, including at work, that we really desire. So I really want to thank all of you for your time today. If you have any questions, I'm going to be around for a few minutes. Otherwise, I believe they're going to lunch next, Willie? Yeah? So thank you, everybody.